My name is Kangwa, Mabuluki, and I'm from Zambia. I come from what we call the United Church of Zambia. I believe very much as a theologian that we ought to be proud of who God has made us to be, and that's in His image, in God's image, and so we must live up to who God has made us to be. First, I must say I was very homophobic, like any African man, or many African men, very, very homophobic, because I believe that my Christian faith made me against LGBTQ and anyone who was, who did not have my own sexual orientation, until we had an exchange program between ourselves and the Netherlands. And we paired up young people with a family where there's a young person studying almost in the same area. And after we paired them up, I was paired up with a chaplain at the University of the Free University of Amsterdam. And I went that evening to be with him in a place where he stayed. And we had a good discussion, theological discussion, for almost 2 hours, just discussing deep theological, thought and subject. Then I don't know how the subject touched on this. My friend suddenly said, "Oh, sorry, I forgot to tell you, this is a unique place. In this flat, you only have gays and lesbians." And I said, "Oh, okay, but you're not a gay and lesbian." He says, "Yeah, I am gay." And I said, "But how come?" I was confused. I asked for an excuse and went to the bathroom to vomit. And I came back and I started feeling a fever. So for a whole day, I was sick in bed. I just couldn't comprehend that fact. But then I thought, here's a man I've been discussing for 2 hours, theological. So there was no chance for me to start doubting that he was not a Christian. He was, to me, as Christian as any Christian can be. And so, it was really a conflict. I think that's why I was sick. That was my conversion point. That's what helped me to begin to understand. For me, that moment brought something that was abstract, something that was just something. It took on a human form. And my theology began to put on, because God took on flesh in order to identify with us. So this aspect of gender, sexuality took on human flesh. And for there I was convinced there are people who can be, who are Christians with a different orientation. I'm convinced every person deserves dignity. Every person must be accepted for who they are, because they are created in the image of God. God did not discriminate and say, these are created in the image of God, these are not. No, everyone is. That's one of the next basic is John 10:10. I've come that they may have life and have it in abundance. That everyone must have dignity, must have, full life. Full life. So we must accept everyone. And of course, 1 Corinthians 13, love. Without love, it's At first, I must confess, it was very scary. And I thought, am I going to get anywhere? Because it was easy to just stop. It is much easier not to be an ally than to be an ally. And I thought, well, I don't think I will. But the more I discover, the more I realize that this is a very important mission, which, we must embark on, because if we don't, then no one will. So I'm at a point where I'm resolved that, I know, I'm convinced what I'm doing is correct, is right, and I'm convinced God is on my side. And I know that come what may, we'll make progress. Wife and I, we like a song that we saw on we've gone too far to turn back. I've come too far to turn back. So it's we are allies, and I think I'll continue to be an ally. And the fear of many church leaders is, first of all, they talk about culture. And for a long time, it was parroted, this is a Western imported thing, it's not African. And how wrong that can be, because it is very African. Because in Africa, and that's one of the things in our program we were struggling with. We said, you see, in Africa, we had LGBTQ people, but it never tore apart the community. When our ancestors were primitive, so to speak, as talking about they would, when you have an intersex child, or when you have a child who is not marrying, because then they would either be gay, or they would say, no, this one is not normal. But that's not the case anymore. We know that's not correct. So for many, it's just a cultural fear that I'll be seen to be different from others. It's amazing how many queer people we have in churches. Because you see, when they come, they just look for safe space. When safe space is provided, then you begin to see the true colors. How many people are LGBTQ? There's a confusion, because in my country, people confuse men having sex with men with LGBTQ, which is not the same. There's so many things that people take their assumptions, but we need to clarify. We need to be clear. And I think it's a genuine concern. That's why we started with our program when we were asked, we need information, because people told us, this is not something we can wish away. Questions will always arise, but we don't have information. Can we have information? We said, okay. So we set out to discover, to find out about information. And I think that's what we need for, if the church leaders can just relax and listen. No one wants to force anyone to believe in anything. All LGBTQ people and allies like me are asking is that, just listen. Listen and then decide what you want to do. No one will condemn you. If I know a queer person, I understand them, and then I decide that they will be my enemy, that's my decision. But I shouldn't condemn them. Once we make the language acceptable, it allows people to listen. Okay. One of the church leaders, in fact, two of the church leaders from my country were saying, well, you had all this knowledge and you sat on it. I said, well, that's because I was like a church leader also. I was afraid you would simply say, cut him off. So, many Christian leaders, I think what they need is courage to just confront and come to terms with this big God who accepts everyone, Religious leaders are concerned about being politically correct. That's one thing that I must mention in our region, is that it's so politicized. It's so politicized. In fact, one person from Uganda says it's usually used as political capital. So I personally don't like the political aspect of it. There's some who don't even believe, yet they use it just to gain political ground. I mean, the term that you use is very important, allies. We need more and more allies. At the death of apartheid in South Africa, the South African churches produced what was called a Kairos document. And I like the statement at the end of the Kairos document. They said, our opposers are united. They come as one front. We cannot afford to be disjointed. We must come together. We must work together. This is not something that can be wished away. Many people thought that way. I've told religious leaders, in your congregation, you'll be surprised how many LGBTQ people are there and how much they support. And most of them are very brilliant people, how they support. It's very hypocritical. They can accept something, but they won't accept the messenger, the person who brings. So then you ask, what's the difference? What's the difference? We cannot refuse or hide or, they're not unique. They're just as human as we are. They're created in the image of God. That is the point. So we cannot wish away the fact that we are made differently. We are in a world where we are all different. We should embrace it and, celebrate our diversity. Yeah, and live together to the glory of God.